Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Scenic Route Astrology. Makayla here. And this is a video about my deep reflection on what astrology means for me. I actually made a beginner for astrology video a couple years ago when I first started my channel. And what I feel and think now about astrology is way more in depth. Um, I laugh because I view this ancient knowledge as an acceleration of your soul dynamic and your consciousness level, really, when you open up yourself to learning more about your chart and using the tools of astrology to your advantage and taking time for it, really. So, I think everyone kind of finds their own deep meaning and purpose for using astrology, and especially if they choose to stick with it, I find that it is a lifelong type of knowledge. It's a subject that you can continue to find rabbit holes to go into, and you can find yourself fascinated with one part of your chart or learning one part of astrology or technique and studying it and paying attention to it and linking up certain synchronistic events in your, day-to-day life in correlation to the transits and what the planets are doing at the time, those things take time and reflection, and awareness and consciousness as much as you can, while also being able to let energy kind of flow and let your body and intuition flow through you and trust in yourself. Everyone, a lot of people know, astrologers know the quote by Dane Rudar, astrology is a language, and if you understand the language, then the sky speaks to you. And I do want to put across to people who are new, who are wondering what astrology is about, what could it mean, what can it do for you, what can you find out in a reading? I do want you to understand that it is a language, and it's almost impossible to really give a good reading without using the language, because we can do a lot of, you know, asking of questions and things like that, right? But and we can get to know the client on a very deep level, and you can explain as best as you can the energy. But when you really understand what the meaning of Venus is, right, as a whole consciousness, as a planet that holds so much weight, and it kind of trickles out into the rest of the energetic force around you, okay? It's really up to the individual to be able to tap into their creativity and their imagination and their dream space and their higher visions, and the things that come from within us, like the intuition and the soul level. And so why I think it's important to learn astrology rather than to just continuously get readings all the time, is because then you can allow yourself to not be boxed in by somebody's thought process, right? You can go into your own, because that really will tell you, like, that is your reflection of you. And one thing I like to say about astrology too is, like, you can get like 2 years of therapy and like 6 good months of astrology coaching and learning, the subject, and you can accelerate yourself because you're able to actually have a map of your moment of birth, right? Your soul has a map to understand and study, but it's really important that the individual finds the answers for themselves. And so that's why I think it's extremely important to, you don't have to be proficient in the language, okay? Especially if you're just starting out, of course, you're just new, right? Like anything. At least you'll begin to understand the weight of one symbol and how much that can hold and how much it can embody within its symbol. And then within very loose guidelines, are you actually able to understand very profound things about yourself, right? And I'll give you a personal example because I am the queen of giving personal examples on my YouTube channel. But it's a way to learn, right? And it's part of my human design profile anyway. But so growing up, I had a very, I have trauma in my childhood, like many of us do. And I also had good caring parts in my childhood also. And one of the things that I had to break out of was growing up with somebody who is a psychologist and dealing with childhood issues at the time and being told that I needed to be on medications and so forth to balance me out and to cut the top off the mountain. But the mountain would always be there, but the top could get cut off with this medication, right? And it just never subscribed to me. Like I knew from a young age, I was like, I'm a Libra rising, right? And my Saturn, for instance, is in my third house with Uranus and Neptune. I'm in that Capricorn era right there where we have the three very close together. And it happens to be my third house. And so when you understand the symbols of all those planets layered with the house that it's in and layered then with my personal experiences and the soul that I was born into with the family dynamics that I was born into, all of these layers came apart where, it's really about thinking for myself and expressing myself in my own unique ways. And the imbalance was coming from the Libra part, the rising part of my chart then, and getting the deep work that I needed to look at myself and liberate my energy. And astrology did that for me. And it really just validated the fact that I'm glad that I never had tried, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not, trying to prescribe anything or anything like that. It's my own journey and my own feelings about this situation, right? And how I feel about medication for certain people. I think that we can heal the mind when we really focus in on it. We can heal the mind and the soul simultaneously, right? When you go down the spiritual path and when you go down the astrological, esoteric knowledge, and all of that. So it was a big realization that my soul came down to think for myself and embrace my intuition, my inner knowing, and fighting my challenges, right? And healing certain parts of my soul that needed and being that unique voice for other people too, who might not feel strong enough or courageous enough yet to empower themselves enough to go on their own journey and make their own decisions, right? Whether that be, I mean, in any dynamic, it can be very small little areas of life or very, very big ones, And you'll notice that astrology will change you, but it changes you for the better, right? Because it brings you back to a sense of yourself that maybe you needed to remember. And I think comes from even a higher place than on the 3D plane. I think when we start to understand ourselves in such a deep and profound way, then we start catching all these synchronicities that our energetic being is echoing out into the universe around us. And then you start to see if you're in alignment, if you're not in alignment with yourself, right? You start to make better decisions and you start to actually, what everyone's been talking about for the last 20 years, manifest, right? Like, because everyone can do it. And to me, the mix between astrology and psychic coaching and abilities and the opening and the meshing of the two brings me to this source, this connection with source that really feels straight from the heart chakra and stems all the way up to the sky and into the deep roots of the earth. And I just feel super connected to the energy where life then went from feeling kind of difficult more than not, to me feeling like I'm just in a place where I can create anything I want and it's fun and the universe is fun and we should be having fun, right? And I laugh because one of my first teachers that I loved to follow, who wasn't even in astrology, was Abraham Hicks, right? This is like going back a few years when I had my spiritual awakening. And about 9 to 10 months into that is when I discovered astrology through looking for a completely different type of school, which was for apothecary, right? So you just follow the frequency and it kind of brings you there. So what astrology can also do is, it's not something to live your life by, but it's like a guidebook to your soul, right? So the manual, sometimes you need to go back and look at the manual, right? And keep in check, like, oh, that's my Mercury acting up, right? That's the thing that I need to work through in this lifetime. So many people, I don't think, can realize that astrology can. I have so many thoughts trying to come out at once because I feel so much consciousness around this energy that it's hard for me, and it's part of my journey, right? Too, to be able to communicate these things as they come out, through me. But yeah, it's a guidebook for the personal soul, and I think that we can glamorize astrology and that's totally fine, and we can make fun and be like, oh, which zodiac signs are best in bed, right? Or which ones are the best kissers and the worst kissers, right? The things that people are attracted to and drawn to with pop astrology, which is fine, right? It's totally fine. But the way I practice it, because what it's done for me is the evolutionary approach, which is the deep soul work, and there's psychology in there, there's philosophy, there's science, um there's compassion, there's empathy, there's spiritual skills, there's leading into your intuition, which brings in psychic skills. Like, it just, to me, it was the form of astrology that really can impact somebody on a soul level. And it's very delicate work, but it's beautiful work. And so let's not get boxed into, well, my Venus sign says I should do this, because it's so much more layered than that within the chart. And that will take, learning and time and techniques and a good teacher or a good coach and a good guide. Like, I've had 3 or 4 astrology coaches at a time. It's really important to me that we are constantly learning, and you will go with some for some time and you'll go with another and you'll become friends and everyone gets layered in. And yeah, it's a different world that you open yourself up to. And it's going to take some hard looks and some hard truth to face, I think, for everyone, really. And but it will transform you if you're looking for that, if you're looking for empowerment, really, because that's what evolutionary astrology, I think, to me is about, is taking the Pluto in your life, right, and really working with that unconscious desire that's emulating from your soul in this lifetime. So I hope that was like not too deep or not too weird for some people, but if it is, that's all right too. Let me know if you resonate with any of this, or what you feel about astrology or what it does for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and where my listeners are at. And make sure you give me a like and subscribe. And I'm sure there'll be more of these videos as time moves on. So yeah, thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you guys soon after the eclipse, probably. Take care.